Alden and Maine's Aldub journey revisited. What if the greatest love stories are not the ones that end with happily ever after, but the ones that make millions of people believe, even for a moment, that something magical was happening right in front of them? Before the hashtags, before the record-breaking crowds, before the screaming fans, viral moments, television specials, and unforgettable killing scenes. There was simply Alden on one side of a television screen, and Maine on the other. They could barely talk to each other, they couldn't even freely interact. And yet somehow, the entire Philippines and eventually fans around the world became convinced that they were witnessing something special. That was the beginning of Aldub. Alden Richards and Maine Mendoza didn't enter television history by following the traditional formula for a love team. There was no carefully planned romantic drama where two stars were introduced as destined lovers. Instead, their connection grew out of something almost accidental, something playful, something unexpected, something that television audiences had never quite seen before. And perhaps that is exactly why it became so powerful. Before Aldub, there was Alden. Long before the name Aldub became a household phrase, Alden Richards was already building his career in Philippine entertainment. Alden entered show business with ambition, talent, and the determination to establish himself as more than just another young actor. He appeared in television dramas and entertainment programs, slowly developing his identity in the industry. He had the looks, he had the charm, he had the acting ability. But like many young stars, Alden was still searching for that one project or one moment that would completely change the trajectory of his career. And then came a television segment that nobody could have predicted would become a cultural phenomenon. Then Maine Mendoza walked into the story. Maine Mendoza was not introduced to the public as an established superstar. She was a young woman who had already gained attention online because of her hilarious dub smash videos. Her expressions, comedic timing, and natural personality made people notice her, but nobody could have known that this internet personality would soon become one of the most recognizable faces in Philippine pop culture. When Maine appeared on Eat Balaga as Yaya Dub, the character immediately caught the attention of viewers. The concept was simple but hilarious. Maine communicated largely through exaggerated facial expressions and lip-sync performances. She was funny. She was unpredictable. And most importantly, she felt authentic. Audiences didn't have to work hard to enjoy her. She simply appeared on screen and made people smile. But then something happened. Something that changed everything. The first glance that changed. Television. Alden appeared on the television screen. Maine saw him. And suddenly, Yaya Dub froze. That moment would become legendary. It wasn't a carefully choreographed romantic scene. It wasn't a dramatic confession. It wasn't even a traditional conversation. It was a reaction, a look, a smile, a little embarrassment, and millions of viewers immediately understood what was happening. The audience began to tease them. Then the producers noticed the reaction. Then the internet exploded. And before anyone had time to fully understand what was happening, Alden and Maine had become Aldub. Two names, one phenomenon, Alden plus Yaya Dub. And later, Alden plus Maine Mendoza. The magic was in the distance. Perhaps the most fascinating thing about Aldub was that their relationship initially depended on something most modern love teams would consider a problem. They couldn't even properly interact. They were often separated by a screen. Instead of holding hands, they exchanged glances. Instead of having long romantic conversations, they communicated through gestures. Instead of dramatic kisses, fans waited for a smile. And somehow, that made everything more exciting. Every little movement suddenly mattered. If Alden smiled, fans noticed. If Maine blushed, fans noticed. If they waved at each other, fans celebrated. The smallest moments became huge events. The audience became part of the story. They were not simply watching Alden and Maine. They were shipping them, cheering for them, analyzing every interaction, and emotionally investing in their journey. That was the secret. The fans didn't feel like spectators. They felt like they were witnessing the story grow alongside the characters. And then came kilig. The Filipino word kilig is difficult to translate perfectly. It describes that exciting, fluttering feeling you experience when something romantic or emotionally sweet happens. Aldub became a masterclass in killing. A glance could create killing. A smile could create killing. A simple message could create killing, Alden saying. Maine's name could create killing. Maine reacting to Alden could create killing. The chemistry was not built around grand romantic gestures. It was built around anticipation. Fans wanted to know what would happen next. Would Alden see Maine? Would Maine react? Would they finally talk? Would they finally meet? Every episode became another chapter. And viewers kept coming back. The hashtag that became a movement soon. Aldub wasn't just popular on television. It became an online phenomenon. Social media platforms were flooded with discussions, memes, fan edits, screenshots, reactions, and hashtags. The phrase #Aldub became almost impossible to ignore. Fans from different generations joined the conversation. Teenagers loved them, adults loved them. Families watched together. And the phenomenon expanded beyond the typical audience of a television love team. There was something incredibly communal about Aldub. People weren't simply consuming entertainment. They were sharing an experience. Someone could watch a scene at home in Manila and immediately discuss it online with someone thousands of kilometers away. The television show provided the moment. Social media amplified it. And the fans transformed it into a movement. A love team, nobody planned this, is perhaps one of the most important parts of the Aldub story. Alden and Maine weren't initially presented as a traditional romantic pair. Their chemistry developed organically in front of the audience. That made their story feel different. It felt spontaneous. It felt unpredictable. And because viewers saw the relationship evolve almost in real time, they developed a powerful emotional attachment to it. The audience didn't just see the finished product. They saw the beginning. They saw the awkward moments, the funny moments, the shy moments, the unexpected moments. And they watched as two entertainers gradually became two of the biggest names in Philippine entertainment. From simple moments to record-breaking events eventually, the Aldub phenomenon became far bigger than the television segment where it started. The pair appeared together in major events. Their popularity translated into endorsements, movies, television projects, appearances, and massive fan gatherings. But perhaps one of the most unforgettable moments came when Aldub fans gathered in enormous numbers for the Tamang Panahon event. The event became a defining moment in the history of the love team. It demonstrated that Aldub was no longer simply a television trend. It had become a cultural phenomenon. The audience wasn't just watching, they were showing up, they were carrying signs, they were wearing Aldub merchandise, they were screaming their support, they were celebrating something that had started from a surprisingly simple television interaction. And that is what made the story so extraordinary. Alden and Maine became bigger than their characters. As the popularity of Aldub grew, something else became clear. People weren't only interested in Alden and Nuyaya Dub. They became interested in Alden, Richards, and Maine Mendoza themselves. Who were they outside the characters? What were they really like? What were their dreams? What would happen to their careers? Could they succeed individually? These questions became increasingly important. And eventually, the two began stepping beyond the boundaries of the Aldub phenomenon. Alden continued developing his career as an actor, singer, and television personality. Maine continued building her own identity as an actress, host, entrepreneur, and entertainer. The characters had opened the door, but the people behind the characters had to walk through it themselves. The difficult part of becoming a phenomenon, being part of something enormously successful, sounds like a dream, but extraordinary popularity also comes with extraordinary pressure. When millions of people become emotionally invested in two public figures, expectations can become enormous. Fans want more appearances, more scenes. More projects. More interactions, more moments. And sometimes the people involved simply need space to grow. That is one of the most complicated aspects of the Aldub story. The public saw a magical love team, but Alden and Maine were also two individual people building their own lives and careers. The challenge was never simply keeping Aldub popular. The bigger challenge was allowing Alden and Maine to grow beyond Aldub without erasing what Aldub meant to their fans. When the story changed as time passed, Alden and Maine's professional paths naturally evolved. They took on different projects. They developed individual careers. Their appearances together became less frequent. For some fans, this was difficult. For others, it was simply part of growing up. Because the truth is that entertainment love teams can be incredibly powerful, but they are still built around real human beings. And real people change, careers change, priorities change, life changes. The version of Aldub that once dominated television could not remain exactly the same forever. But something interesting happened. The less often fans saw them together, the more nostalgic their old moments became. Scenes that once seemed ordinary suddenly became memories. A smile from an old episode became something fans replayed. Familiar gesture became something fans remembered. Photograph became a reminder of a particular era. And suddenly, Aldub was no longer just a current television phenomenon. It had become a memory. Why fans still remember years later? People still talk about Aldub. Why? Because Aldub wasn't simply about romance. It was about timing. It was about surprise. It was about laughter. It was about anticipation. It was about having something exciting to look forward to. For many fans, Aldub became part of their daily lives during a particular period. They remember where they were when certain moments happened. They remember the HAS. They remember the jokes. They remember watching the show with friends or family. They remember screaming at their television screens. They remember waiting for the next episode. And perhaps most importantly, they remember how Aldub made them feel. That emotional connection is difficult to manufacture. You can create a love team. You can write romantic scenes. You can promote two actors, but you cannot always manufacture a cultural moment. Sometimes the audience simply decides that something is special, and when that happens, no marketing strategy can fully explain it. Alden and Maine today, two individuals, one unforgettable chapter. The most beautiful way to look at the Aldub story today may not be to ask whether Alden and Maine are still the same pair they once were. Instead, perhaps the better question is, what did they mean to each other's careers and to the people who watched them? Alden Richards became an even bigger star. Maine Mendoza established herself as a successful entertainer in her own right. Both continued moving forward. Both experienced different chapters. And both carried something from the Aldub era with them. That doesn't necessarily mean the story has to be interpreted as a traditional romance. It means that two careers became connected through one extraordinary moment in television history. Could Aldub ever happen again? This is the question fans still love to ask. Could Alden and Maine reunite for another major project? Could there be another television appearance? Another movie? Another special? Another moment that brings back that familiar feeling? Nobody can predict the future, but perhaps the reason fans continue asking isn't necessarily because they want to recreate the past exactly. Maybe they simply want to experience that feeling again, the feeling of watching two people share a moment that seems completely natural. The feeling of discovering something before everyone else. The feeling of saying, wait, did you see that? And then watching the internet explode. The real Aldub legacy. The biggest mistake would be to measure Aldub only by numbers. Yes, there were massive audiences. Yes, there were record-breaking moments. Yes, there were viral hashtags and unforgettable events. But numbers eventually fade. What lasts longer is memory, and Aldub created memories for millions of people. It reminded audiences that television could still bring people together. It showed how powerful social media could become when television and online communities collided. It proved that chemistry could emerge from the most unexpected circumstances, and it demonstrated that sometimes the audience doesn't just consume a story, the audience becomes part of it. The magic that started it all. When we look back now, it's easy to see Alden as a massive phenomenon, but at the beginning, nobody knew what was coming. There was no guarantee. No promise that it would become historic. No certainty that Alden and Maine would become two of the most recognizable names of their generation. There was simply a young actress making funny expressions, a young actor appearing on a screen, a few unexpected glances, a little teasing, a lot of laughter, and millions of people who suddenly felt something. That is what makes the beginning so beautiful. The magic wasn't planned. It wasn't manufactured. Perfectly behind the scenes. It grew, moment by moment, episode by episode. Smile by smile, until suddenly, the entire country was talking about Alden and Maine, and perhaps that is why Alden remains so special. Because in an entertainment industry filled with carefully planned stories, Alden felt like a story that the audience discovered for itself. And maybe that is why fans still can't let go. Time moves forward, careers evolve, people grow, television changes, social media changes, and yet, every once in a while, an old Alden clip appears online. Someone shares an old photograph. Familiar scene resurfaces. A fan remembers a favorite moment. And suddenly, people are transported back to that era. Back to the screen, back to the smiles, back to the excitement, back to the HAS. Back to the feeling of wondering what would happen next. For a few seconds, it feels like no time has passed at all. That may be the greatest legacy of Alden Richards and Maine Mendoza. Not that they remained frozen in one chapter forever, but that they created a chapter people never forgot. Alden started as an unexpected television pairing. It became a phenomenon. Then it became a memory. And now, for millions of fans, it remains something even more powerful, a piece of a beautiful moment in time. Because sometimes, the greatest stories aren't the ones that last forever. Sometimes they're the ones that arrive unexpectedly, make us laugh, make us believe, make us feel something we didn't expect, and leave us asking one simple question. Simple becomes something so magical. That was Alden, and that was the magic that started it all.